have been testing this baby for over 2 weeks and I have some thoughts. What's up, friends? Welcome back to my channel. I hope you all are doing well. Today I have my long-awaited review of the new Tom Ford Traceless Soft Matte Concealer Stick. This is the newest complexion launch from Tom Ford. I've had this for a good long time. I've been testing this for over 2 weeks now, and I definitely have some thoughts for you guys. I'm going to be doing a demo, a wear test, showing you how I like to apply this, letting you know if I think it is worth the hefty price tag, and I'm also going to be doing some comparisons with the concealer sticks from Cle De Peau and Chantecaille. So if you guys want to hear all of my thoughts, then keep watching. If you like this video, please don't forget to give me a big thumbs up and also consider subscribing to my channel. I post reviews on luxury beauty every single week. I do a lot of favorites videos, will I buy it style of videos. So if that is of interest to you, go ahead and click that subscribe button. And without further ado, let's get into this review. All right, party people, let's talk about this new concealer from Tom Ford. This is the Tom Ford Traceless Soft Matte Concealer. I was particularly interested in this because I really like the foundation stick version of this product. Tom Ford makes really good complexion products in general. They're just really expensive, so it's hard to know what is worth the money. This particular concealer stick is retailing for $60 USD. I purchased mine from the Selfridges website for $48. Do know if you're ordering it from the US, you're gonna have to pay about $30 shipping, so it's better to just get it from a US retailer if you're in the US. Taking a look at the description of this concealer online, it says the formula features hyaluronic acid for instant 12-hour hydration and spherical powders to ensure silky smooth, seamless application for comfortable and non-drying wear. So it is supposed to be hydrating even though it's matte. It's a soft matte texture and it's supposed to keep your skin hydrated for that 12-hour wear. It also says the soft focus powder offers natural soft matte finish. So like I said, it's soft matte, but it's supposed to be hydrating and also blurring. The formula is waterproof, transfer resistant, sweat resistant, and humidity resistant. It also says it's non-caking, non-pouring, and crease resistant. Boy, that is a mouthful. I am going to share with you guys in my final thoughts if I think this lives up to all those claims and if I think it's worth the money, of course. This is 4 grams of product, which seems to be pretty standard when I compare it against other products. It is also made in Japan and it comes in 20 shades. I didn't think 20 shades was a lot at first, especially for a matte product, but when you actually look at a lot of other luxury stick concealers, that's pretty darn good. So comment down below and let me know what you think. Let me know if you had trouble finding your shade. I have the shade 0N0, which is kind of the typical shade that I would pick for a concealer. You guys are going to see this is a bit lighter than the other luxury stick concealers that I found. So actually there's like a pretty decent range here, so I was kind of happy to see that. In addition, taking a look at the ingredients list for you guys, there is mica and also iron oxides in the ingredients, which are going to give a bit of reflectivity and are going to sort of give that blurring effect. I am going to show you guys a swatch in the demo next up so you can sort of see what this texture look like, but it does give a bit of a light reflecting sparkly look that is very, very apparent when you swatch it on your hand. So I want to mention that as well, just in case. I know some people, they don't like mica in their products. I think those are all the basic details that I want to share with you guys. Next up, we're going to get into the demo. I'm going to be putting this on my face, showing you guys the texture, how I like to apply it, what this feels like on the skin. So let's get into that. All right, friends, let's get this concealer on my face. We're going to do the demo and then also a wear test. Just for reference, I always film in natural light. Once I get this on my face, I am going to take you outside so you can see it a little bit more up close. And then I will check in with you throughout the day so we can see how this concealer wears. Also, just for reference, I am 32 years old. My skin concerns are definitely, fine lines and wrinkles. I have dry skin. I have hereditary under eye circles, and I also have a little bit of redness and rosacea, which I've managed to cover up a little bit with a light layer of the Fenty skin tint. That's all I have on my face today, but I haven't really applied anything to this area. So we're gonna see how the Tom Ford Stick Concealer applies. I'm gonna be looking for this to not dry out my under eye area. I'm gonna be looking for it to brighten up my dark circles and not settle into my fine lines. So let me show you guys 2 ways that I have tried applying this. By the way, this is what the component looks like. It's a nice small size, so you can kind of really get in there. I like to go straight in from the stick and just start applying this where I need it. And I'm using the shade 0N0. It is the lightest neutral shade that is in the range. And I picked this one because I felt like it would be brightening enough for the under eyes because that's where I need it most. So on this side, I'm gonna go in with a brush. This is from BK Beauty, and you can see that it really smooths out very well. It's extremely, extremely blendable and very, very quick. If you don't have as many dark circle issues as me, you could definitely go in with a smaller brush and just kind of do it right there in the tear duct region, but I like to apply it everywhere. So you can see there's definitely some blurring that's going on there. I can still see the dark circle, and one coat really has not covered up that mark at all. Now on this side, I'm gonna do my preferred way of applying this concealer, which is with my fingers. And the reason for that is because this concealer, it's very blendable. You can sheer it out a lot. I'll kind of just go in like this and try and build up the coverage. I do think that because of the texture, the brush sometimes, it's harder to get fuller coverage, to get the kind of coverage that I want. And also it can be streaky at times. So typically what I will do is I'll put on a light layer, either with a brush or with my fingers, and then I'll just go in with my fingers, and it's a bit easier to deposit the pigment, and it just blends very, very well. And I want to show you guys a close-up swatch right now of this concealer just swatched on my hand. I think that this is going to be helpful for you all to understand the texture. See how sort of like luminous and, for lack of a better word, juicy and hydrating this concealer looks? Because it's like that, it is very spreadable and does sheer out. It is not the most opaque concealer that I have in my collection for sure. So I just wanted to show you that. And you also might notice it's a little bit sparkly. It has kind of a glisten to it. That's from the mica and the iron oxides that are included in the ingredients. So it is going to have some blurring properties. It's going to be moisturizing. And then finally, because it has that texture, it does very much sheer out. All right, friends, so we have this applied. I'm just going to get super close up to show you what that looks like. You can tell that the one that I applied with my finger has a little bit more coverage than the side that we did with the brush. If you really want to build up the coverage, I do recommend going in with your finger or maybe a more precise brush right where you need it, where it's darkest. And I do have a hard time covering up little spots and discoloration like this with this concealer. I don't have much else, maybe right here, that we can kind of cover up a little bit. And I just like to sort of smooth it on the tops of my cheeks to cover up my rosacea, but hopefully that just shows you that it's not dry, it's not super dewy, it blends beautifully, but at the same time, it doesn't have a ton of coverage. It's not super matte and opaque. It's definitely like a soft, matte, velvety type of feel. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go do the rest of my makeup, do something super natural to not distract from this wear test. And then I'm going to meet you guys outside in the sunshine just to kind of show you where we're at as a starting point. All right, my friends. So here we are outside. You can hear the birds chirping. And I just want to show you how this concealer is looking after I've done the rest of my makeup. Very light application. You can still tell this side has a little bit more coverage, the side that I applied with my fingers, than the one with the brush. I'm still seeing a lot of my hyperpigmentation poking through. Once again, I used the Fenty Skin Tint to see if the concealer could kind of do the rest of the job of covering that up. I have applied a little bit of bronzer to my lids so that the concealer doesn't crease right here. And then you can see it's really not like caking up or settling into anything. So I just wanted to show you there what this looks like in the daylight as a starting point. Very smooth. Sorry, there's a plane going by. And then I will check in with you guys in a couple hours so we can do our wear test. Okay, friends, it's now time for my check-in. I've been wearing this concealer for a couple of hours now. It's now kind of like midday. And I want to show you how we're doing here. So remember how I told you that this concealer, it's pretty emollient. I want to sort of demonstrate what that has now done to my makeup. So I'm actually in a slightly more shaded area because I think that you can see it a little bit better this way. I do kind of see it just separating a little bit. If hopefully you can see that. And do you see how it has settled into these lines that are under my eyes. That does happen like fairly frequently with very emollient concealers, but I definitely see this going into even some more of the fine lines. I just think it's a little bit difficult to see on camera because it's so emollient. It is separating. Now I can smooth it out. It looks a little bit smoother now, but nonetheless, I don't like the fact that it's kind of not caking up because it's not dry, but it's not staying as smooth as I would like. And I think even more obvious right here, you can see that it has creased the powder that I put on top of it. And it also is kind of causing this Chantecaille mascara, which I think a lot of you know is a very long lasting mascara. It's causing it to transfer a little bit to my upper brow bone. So that's kind of how we're doing right now. And like I said before, it doesn't give me the best coverage. Now, you guys are going to notice once I move more into this much more flattering lighting right here, it looks more illuminating. So really consider that when you're watching reviews. If people are in studio lights, it's gonna look better. If they're in direct sunlight, I do think it looks more flattering. See how much more like illuminated and youthful my face looks when I'm not in more of like a shadowy lighting. So we'll get close here as well for you guys to see. Still, this has not really changed. It hasn't really rubbed away or worn away. It's just you can still notice that a lot of this little discoloration isn't covered and we're getting some creasing here. It's settling a little bit. It's fixable. I can just pat it in and I'm good, which I like. It's not dry, but it is settling. So I'm gonna check in with you guys one more time towards the end of the day, at the end of this wear test, and then I will share with you guys my final thoughts. Hello, friends. This is our final daylight check-in because the sun's gonna be going down very, very shortly, and it's kind of cloudy outside, so I wanted to get a good shot of the concealer before I show my final thoughts. I think that now that I've kind of smoothed out what was creasing and settling into my lines before, I think it looks pretty good since the last time that we checked in a couple of hours ago. This is at the point now where I've worn this for an entire work day. If I were to wear it for a couple more hours, which I have for over 2 weeks at this point, you know, it wears away a little bit more, but for the most part, I think what you can see is that it's still there, it's still looking smooth, and it also still looks hydrated. It doesn't get cakey and dry. Not much change since the last time that we checked in. Still very smooth, and it hasn't gotten really any worse. Now let's head over to my final thoughts. I'm going to be telling you whether or not I would repurchase this, and also we're going to be doing some comparisons with the Cle De Peau concealer stick and the one from Chantecaille. Let's get over to that. All right, friends, now let's get into my final thoughts. I hope that wear test was helpful for you all. Let me talk a little bit about what I like about this concealer and what I don't like about this concealer. First off, I do think that this has a very lovely and luxurious texture. It does feel like a luxury concealer. It's very silky, it's very smooth, it's very blendable. It does live up to the description online. I also do agree that it is hydrating. It stays hydrating for a good long time. It's not cakey. It doesn't emphasize any pores or texture. It can be a little bit on the shiny side. It's not super matte. It's definitely more of a soft matte velvety finish. I don't know if I would really be putting this maybe on like acne or somewhere where you have a lot of texture. I don't think it's going to emphasize it. I just don't know if this would be the best concealer for that. But I do think that it provides a lot of nice moisture, and over the course of the day, it doesn't really cake up, and it's pretty easy to sort of smooth out if it settles into any of your lines, etc. All of that being said, I do think my final thoughts is that this concealer just isn't my favorite. I don't really like it all that much. I don't think that it is for me, even though it has a really nice texture, even though it has really nice hydration. I think at the end of the day, this just isn't enough coverage for me. I can definitely see it blurring. I can definitely see that light reflecting happening. It really does remind me when I swatch it of one of my favorite concealers that I recently started using, which is the Charlotte Tilbury Beautiful Skin Concealer. But I actually went back to using that the other day just to confirm my thoughts, which is it just doesn't have enough coverage. You know, when you go in with your favorite concealer into your problem areas, formulas, and it just perfectly covers everything up in the most natural, non-drying, cakey sort of way. And you almost have that sort of sigh of relief. You have that feeling of like, ah, yes, like you just go in and you cover up all those imperfections that maybe you're self-conscious about. That's how I feel when I go in with the Charlotte Tilbury Beautiful Skin Concealer. I don't really get that from this. I feel like this is a little bit finicky for me. You guys saw in the wear test and in the demo, it's a little hard for me to get this to lay smooth on my skin. It does settle into my fine lines a little bit. I'm wearing it today and I have noticed that it does help when I powder it, but I just think for something that is described as soft matte, I wouldn't expect to have to powder it. This is actually not as matte as I thought it was going to be. Certainly not as matte as the Cle De Peau concealer, which we will talk about in just a second. So I think at the end of the day, this is just not opaque enough for me to really give me the type of coverage that I want on my under eyes. And then it's also really not the kind of concealer that I want to go in with on my acne spots and redness, because I mean, same thing. It really is not opaque enough to cover them. And when it comes to acne, I want something that is a little bit more matte and less slippy than this formula. I also think that this isn't really the most long-lasting concealer as well, because it is more of a hydrating formula. I have other concealers in my collection that are more long-lasting. If I wanted to really lock and load my makeup, if I was going out for the evening and I wanted to really look my best, or if I was going to be out all day, maybe it's like a weekend or I'm traveling, etc., this really wouldn't be what I would use. So I don't think it's a bad formula. I just think that it doesn't really suit me. This is the kind of thing that I think I probably won't repurchase, unfortunately. This is going to be going in my purse. This is going to be a really good touch-up concealer that I can use to smooth out anything that has maybe gotten a little bit dry, maybe it's moved, maybe I want to smooth out and refresh my makeup. That's what I think this is going to be good for. I like to use a lot of stick concealers for that purpose, and I think that this is probably going to be the best one because this one is the sheerest and the most hydrating. Now I want to take a quick second, friends, to compare the Tom Ford concealer with the stick concealers from Cle De Peau and also Chantecaille, because these are my two favorite stick concealers, and I know that a lot of you guys either have this in your collection or you're trying to figure out which stick concealer is best for you. And I also think that these comparisons, they will further emphasize and help you guys understand what I'm trying to say about the Tom Ford stick concealer. So let's start off first with the stick concealer from Cle De Peau. Just looking at my notes here, this one retails for $75, but you do get more product. You get 1 more gram of product in this one, so it kind of evens out at the end of the day. When I take a look at the marketing description for these, they're pretty similar. They're described pretty similar, to be honest. I would say that Cle De Peau, they really drive home the fact that there's a lot of skincare in this product. There's also some sunscreen in this product. I'm not an ingredients expert, but I think in general, the way I look at these two is that this one is a little bit more skincare infused, if that's something that is important to you. The biggest difference that you need to know about the Cle De Peau is that this one is actually matte. This is much more matte than the one from Tom Ford. Let me show you guys a swatch comparison here on my hand in the sunlight so you can see exactly what I mean. The Tom Ford is on top and the Cle De Peau is on the bottom. Now I know the shades aren't the same, but let's take a look at the texture. The one from Tom Ford, as I mentioned during the demo, it has that sort of glistening, like juicy, hydrating sort of texture to it, and that's probably from the hyaluronic acid and a lot of the hydrating ingredients that are in it. The one from Cle De Peau, much more matte. Both of these have mica and iron oxides. It's just, I think the texture and maybe like the fineness of the mica, etc., is a little bit more apparent in the Tom Ford. So I think that they both have blurring properties. They just look different on the eye. In general, the one from Cle De Peau, it's much more opaque. I prefer this one a lot more, even though I have dry skin and I don't really go that much for matte textures. The Cle De Peau one, like this brand, pretty much all of their foundations work really well for me. I think they work really well for dry skin and mature skin. Even if it's a matte formula, it really doesn't get dry and cakey on my skin. So I think that is the biggest difference there. The one from Tom Ford It is more dewy, it is sheerer. I don't think it's really that much of a matte texture at all. And the one from Cle De Peau, it's gonna be that more traditional matte texture. The Cle De Peau as well, I think it is more multi-purpose because I can use this under my eyes, I can use it on acne, I use it for touch-ups. It's just an all-around more multi-purpose concealer for me. The one thing that I think the Tom Ford has on the Cle De Peau is that there's so many more shades. Like this is the kind of shade I would use for under eyes, and the one from Cle De Peau, this is the shade Ivory, if I'm not mistaken. It is the lightest one, and it's really not even that light. So if you can't find your shade in the Cle De Peau, maybe the Tom Ford isn't a good one to check out. But in general, those are the main differences between these two. Now let's talk about the one from Chantecaille. This one is also 4 grams of product. It's $5 more than the Tom Ford, so it's just a little bit more expensive. And this one is actually my favorite of the 3 because it's a good happy medium. It's still matte, but this has a very creamy texture. It's very hydrating. I think with Chantecaille, a lot of their products as well have a lot of skincare. In general, they just work really well for my skin, just like the Cle De Peau products. I'll show you guys the swatch comparison here of the Tom Ford on the top, then you have the Cle De Peau, then you have the Chantecaille. Notice once again how the one from Tom Ford, it looks much more wet and sort of creamy. It's going to be more sheer. Then the Cle De Peau is the one that is the most matte. And then on the bottom, the Chantecaille. Hopefully you guys can tell from the swatch, but it does have just a creamier texture. It feels more like skincare almost. It feels a little bit more nourishing. So like I said, this one is kind of the perfect happy medium for me. I like the Cle De Peau as well. It's just a little bit of a different experience. I feel like the Chantecaille, it doesn't settle into my fine lines, but it still gives me that nice sort of natural hydrated look on my under eyes, and I still think it's matte enough that I can use it on other parts of my face. The last 2 things to note about the Chantecaille is that this is the only one that doesn't have mica. There are iron oxide, so you're still getting some blurring there. It is opaque enough to kind of cover up any blemishes in my under eyes, etc. And also this one, they're just like the Cle De Peau, there really aren't enough shades. This one is probably the worst in the shade department, especially because I'm always seeing many shades out of stock. In fact, I don't even see this right now on the Chantecaille website. I'm seeing it on a lot of department store websites. It really is a mixed bag whether a certain shade is in stock. I really hope that Chantecaille is not discontinuing this, and if they are, hopefully they're just kind of slightly reformulating it. But overall, between the 3, just for my skin type, this one is my favorite. So that is all I have for you today, my friends. In summary, for the Tom Ford Traceless Soft Matte Concealer, who do I think this is for? I think this is for somebody that likes something that is very lightweight, that is blurring, that comes in a wide variety of shades, and probably also for somebody that just doesn't have as pigmented dark circles or redness as myself. You just want like a little bit of coverage here and there, and you want something that's going to be nice and hydrating and nourishing for maybe your dry skin or mature skin. That's who I think that this is for. So that's all I have for you today. If you guys like this video, please don't forget to give me a thumbs up. It really helps me out. And now it is your turn. Please sound off in those comments down below and let me know if this review was helpful. Let me know all of your thoughts, and especially if you pick this up, tell us about your experience. Do you like this? You know, what is your skin type? If you don't mind sharing, what is your age, to kind of help us out and understand what the rest of the community thinks of this concealer. If you are new here, I recommend heading over to my channel page next. There is a lot more luxury beauty content on there waiting for you. And with that, my friends, I hope that you are having a fantastic day, and I will see you in my next one. Goodbye.